Awesome. I think we can go ahead and slowly get started. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to see people here, including Ed from Bellevue, Washington. Hello. My name is Maddie Rose. I use she, her pronouns. I am an outreach coordinator with the Union of Concerned Scientists. And today is a really solemn day. Right off the bat, want to acknowledge that we are here to honor a very important, very devastating day in history. And also, we're here to be hopeful and to share a message of a world free from the potential for devastating nuclear weapons. So I hope you can join me in holding those very two different tones for this event, that we can both recognize the harm and the lives lost, while also being optimistic about a future without those harms. So let's get started with a quick overview of our time together. So our agenda, we're going to start with a brief presentation. We're going to share a little bit about the history of what happened 79 years ago this month in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And then we will also talk a little bit about what we're doing at the Union of Concerned Scientists to make sure that that never happens again. And then we will make paper cranes together. So hopefully between now and then, you can grab some paper to be able to participate. We'll have a few different ways that you can be successful in making those paper cranes. And then we'll be sharing them, which is really the most important part, is sharing this message. And we'll explain a little bit more about what it is about paper cranes, why they're important, and what they symbolize here today. And that's it. And a little bit of logistics. We are recording this. So if you absolutely don't want your face recorded, you can turn your camera off. But I do really encourage you to keep your cameras on, and so we can see each other's face. And I'm really, really glad to see all the lovely faces on here. And we will be sending a follow-up email with some of these resources, as well as sharing some information in the chat. And the chat function is on, as you've seen. Thank you to everyone who has introduced themselves in the chat. Feel free to keep introducing yourself. But we have it set right now so that participants are not allowed to unmute to make sure we don't have any accidental disruptions. But there will be time later on to share, to unmute yourself. And if you do have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. I think we also have a Q&A function, but the chat should suffice. And I'm joined by a few different folks here that work with me at the Union of Concerned Scientists that you'll meet soon. But a quick shout out to Hunter, our Zoom extraordinaire, who's doing all the behind the scenes. So you'll hear more from Hunter. But thank you very much, Hunter, for making this happen. So without further ado, we're going to transition to this short presentation to kind of ground ourselves in the history of why we're here together. And in the tradition that I'm from, we often do moments of silence. And so in order to sort of pivot from logistics to a really painful history, I'm going to mute myself for a moment, take a few deep breaths, and have a moment of silence, and then we'll get into it. Thank you all. So 79 years ago today, the United States dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima, Japan. And then 3 days later, they dropped another bomb on Nagasaki, Japan. Tens of thousands of civilians were killed instantly. And by the end of 1945, the blasts, burns, and radiation from these atomic bombings killed more than 210,000 people. The survivors of these bombings are called hibakusha, and they suffered not only the physical after effects of radiation, such as cancer, but also lifelong psychological trauma and social discrimination from the stigma of being a survivor. Following the attacks, scientists studied the effects of radiation on Hibakusha, but for political reasons, as you can probably imagine, the governments covered up and inaccurately reported what had happened and the harms, further adding to all of the harms that these folks suffered. To learn more, especially if you come from a science background and are interested in this element of the research, Hunter's going to put in the chat a resource that my coworker Gregory suggested that has declassified documents that detail some of this early history of radiation sickness research. It's quite interesting and very disheartening. Despite this stigma, many Hibakusha have shared widely their experiences and continue to advocate for a world free from nuclear weapons. And of course, there are many, many resources I could share, and I really encourage you to do more research yourself, as well as find more, especially from the actual voices of Hibakusha. But there is one place in particular, one project in particular, that I wanted to bring to your attention. And that is a project that my coworker, Gregory Kulaki, who works with us here at the Union of Concerned Scientists, he last year had the chance to meet and interview students and teachers who were a part of a project, a collaborative art project called Painting the Atomic Bombing with the Next Generation. This is a project sponsored by the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum, involving high school students in Hiroshima, Japan, who created paintings to depict the memory of the Hibakusha. So thank you, Hunter. Just put in the chat a blog post that I encourage you to read more. It's a fascinating interview. So Gregory did an interview with the students and teachers, and the way the art project actually works is the high school student artists have interviews with the Hibakusha and hear about their experience and work together with them to create really powerful artwork to depict their memories. And I wanted to take a moment to read directly a quote from the student artist named Anju Mochida, who Gregory got to speak with. This student said, "I think the most important message that the Hibakusha want to convey to the world is that we must never allow the same thing to happen again, and we really should not create any more nuclear weapons. The Hibakusha strongly said that Japan and other countries must not have nuclear weapons and that we must reduce nuclear weapons. I think it is because they are Hibakusha who experienced and felt the horror of the atomic bombing firsthand. They understand that if the same thing happened in this day and age, the damage would be even greater. That's why the Hibakusha have a real sense of crisis, I believe." So I encourage you to click on that link to read the rest of the blog if you're interested. And again, this is a very abbreviated version of the history and what happened, and there's so much more to dig into, and I really encourage you to. But for the sake of time and our limited time we have together, that's where I'm going to leave it in terms of the history. And now I'm going to turn it over to two of my coworkers who work with me on the outreach team of the Global Security Program, who are going to talk a little bit about what we are doing as a program right now to work towards these goals of abolition, of making sure that nuclear weapons are never used again, as well as rectifying the harms that they've already occurred. So, Catherine, take it away for Securing Tomorrow.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Catherine. I have the privilege of working with Maddie and other folks here in the Global Security Program, and I work on the campaign called Securing Tomorrow. Our Securing Tomorrow campaign is working to rein in the legacy of the Manhattan Project and the continued and ongoing saber rattling of the United States and its government, which is currently undertaking projects to expand our nuclear arsenal for the first time since the Cold War. This is obviously counter to a world without nuclear weapons and disregards the calls of the Hibakusha. So we're advocating for targeted policies in order to honor those calls and working to reverse the momentum towards an expanding nuclear arsenal. And specifically, right now, the Pentagon is moving forward with a project called Sentinel that has gone wildly over budget and will build and deploy at least 400 new nuclear missiles to silos across the heartland of the United States. So you can learn more about this. We won't go into too much here. We're doing an upcoming webinar, Unnecessary, Dangerous, and Expensive, The Reality About Nuclear Missiles. It'll be on Thursday, September 5th at 3 p.m. Eastern. We will hear from UCS Senior Scientist and Research Director Laura Grego, as well as a staff member from one of our congressional champions about these silo-based missiles in the US and updates on the program, as well as what you can do to get involved to help stop it. So keep an eye on your email. We'll be sending that around soon. And I will send it over to Lily to talk about the other half of our work.
Thanks so much, Catherine, and wonderful to be here with you all tonight. So our second campaign is called True Human Security, and in that campaign, we're fighting for justice for those who have been harmed by the production, testing, and use of nuclear weapons. So often when we think of the victims of nuclear weapons, we think of them only as those that Maddie discussed earlier, those who were impacted by the bombings in Japan. And while, of course, those were terrible horrors, the reality is that there are also hundreds of thousands of people in the United States and around the world who have been exposed to dangerous levels of radiation from the entire process of nuclear weapons production. So the testing, the uranium mining, the building of the weapons, and the disposal and storage of the waste. And actually, one of the really beautiful things about this work is over the years that I've worked on these issues, I've seen really incredible collaborations between Hibakusha and Japan and these communities elsewhere around the world who really see so much common experience and shared values because of these tragic but common bonds of radiation exposure and harm. So one specific project we're working on right now is expanding and extending a program called the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, or RECA. And this is a program that was created back in 1990 to provide partial compensation to people who are harmed by radiation exposure from nuclear weapons testing in the US and uranium mining. But the program was always really flawed and excluded a lot of communities. So over the last few years, we've built a coalition of groups from around the country who have been working to expand RECA and finally cover many of the communities who were originally excluded. And if you're on our email list, you may have seen some emails about our RECA work, and we're continuing that fight this year as well. And with that, I'll turn it back to Maddie.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Catherine and Lily, for giving us a little bit of a teaser about our campaigns we're running at the Union of Concerned Scientists. If that has piqued your interest in any way, I would encourage you to check out our Take Action page. Beautiful. Thank you, Hunter. This page has some easy, quick actions you can take, as well as some more information about those campaigns and the current projects we have underway. And if you have questions, want to learn more about any of it, you can also email me directly. Hunter's going to put my email. Beautiful. Thank you. And I would love to answer any questions you have about this event, about our campaigns, really anything that we're working on over at the Union of Concerned Scientists as part of our mission towards a world without nuclear weapons. But I think we've had enough talking. I think everybody's ready for the main event, why we are here today, this exciting tactile project we have to make paper cranes. But real quick, I want to make sure we know why paper cranes are significant for this particular cause of nuclear weapons. So paper cranes, you probably know, are a symbol of peace around the world. But specifically, it's thanks to the legacy of a person named Sadako Sasaki. After she was diagnosed with leukemia a decade after the bombing in Hiroshima, she folded 1,000 paper cranes in the hopes that her wish to live would be granted. And while Sadako herself did not survive, her legacy of paper cranes did, inspiring her classmates and the world with a message of peace, hope, and resilience. And that's exactly what we're here to do today. And wow, Judy, what overachiever. You've got a lot of cranes over there. I will also maybe say I have paper crane earrings on. It's kind of hard to tell, but I also tried to dress for the occasion. So great. So what we're going to do, we're going to experiment with a few different options for folding paper cranes. So what we're going to do is if you do nothing, you will stay in this breakout group. And Lily Adams, our paper crane folding expert, will be going through the process, leading us all through the process of folding a paper crane. And we have two other breakout group possibilities. If you are a person who already knows how to fold a paper crane and you don't really need Lily's instruction and you don't necessarily want it, you can go in this self-guided breakout group. You can also go in that group and watch a YouTube video on your own if that's your preferred way of learning. And then we also have a troubleshooting room. So if you've tried to make a paper crane before, you may know that sometimes you get into a sticky situation. And of course, it would be easier if we were all together in person. We could help each other, but we're going to try to recreate that with a sort of troubleshooting room where you can either put yourself into that room if you know how to using the Zoom function in the breakout rooms once they open, or you can put it in the chat and one of our co-hosts will move you in there and you can get a little more one-on-one or small group attention to help with the cranes. But before we go, I do want to also say that this is meant to be a sort of commemorative, maybe fun activity. So I would encourage you to value the journey and the process. If you do any type of art or craft, sometimes it doesn't always look like it did in your mind when the final product comes out. But even if you don't technically succeed in making a paper crane, there are other opportunities for content to share at the end, or even just, a story to tell tomorrow. You can tell all your friends you tried your hardest and didn't quite make one. So I just want to add that disclaimer because sometimes it can be a little tricky. And I also want to remind everyone, we will be coming back to this large group, taking a group photo, and then actually doing some sharing of these paper cranes. We have a few different ways for that to happen. Does anyone have any questions before we open the breakout groups and then Lily begins instructing us here? All right, great. So I think Hunter has opened the breakout group. So remember, if you want to stay here and get instructed by Lily, you don't have to do anything. You just sit here. Maybe grab your paper if you don't have it already. And if you would like to join the self-guided room, you should be able to at the bottom of your screen. I think right now there should be a button that says breakout groups, and you should be able to move yourself to that room, which is called Unguided. Great, I see two people already in there. And hopefully you don't need the troubleshooting yet, but if you want to go there, we'll move Aaron there shortly. But a reminder, you don't have to go anywhere. You can just stay here. That is the easiest and probably best option for most people. All right. I think I will turn it over to you now, Lily.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks again for being here. I really love folding paper cranes. When I was a kid, a woman who worked on international peace issues stayed in our home for a little while, and she taught me to fold paper cranes. So that was when I was about 10. And I got so into folding them. I don't know if folks saw Judy's strings of paper cranes, but I had strings and strings and strings hanging from my bedroom ceiling. And I just find it such a beautiful and relaxing activity. So really glad to be able to do this all with you today. I will say that teaching people to fold paper cranes virtually is much more challenging than doing it in person. So apologies in advance if I lose you or if there's something that I can't help you with, but I will do my best. So if you get lost at any point or can't figure out one of the folds, I can't see everyone. So maybe throw something in the chat so I can just make sure to pause and try to address your question. Or if it just gets too far down the road and you're lost, that's why we have the troubleshooting room. So you can always move yourself there and try to get help and get back on track with the folding there. If folks don't already have a square piece of paper, you can take any sort of 8.5 by 11 paper and fold it into a sort of triangle at the top, and that'll give and cut it across the fold, and that'll give you a square piece of paper. And I have my square piece of paper here. So also it might be helpful. You'll notice I'm talking in one screen and there's a piece of paper, the crane cam, in another screen, and you can follow along. And so it'll be easier to see the folds in the crane cam. So you can also pin that if it's helpful to be able to see that a little larger. And then with that, I'm going to get started. But also anyone here from UCS, if you see that people have a question or that we need to pause, please just jump in and let me know, and I will stop for a moment. But I'll also try to move slowly. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing you're going to do is fold your piece of paper in half like this. Also, I will say if you folded cranes before, there are a lot of different like little variations along the way. So it might be a little bit different than what I'm going to do, but it all gets you to the same place. So we fold once like this and then unfold and do the same thing the other way. So you end up with two folds going through your paper. So when I unfold, I have creases going down both sides of my square. And I'll give us a moment here. All right, and then when you've done that, you're going to do two more folds. You're going to fold your piece into a triangle like this. I always try to line it up. The more you can line up the edges, the neater your crane will be. But also don't worry about it too much because they always get a little messy, and that's also always fine. So fold it into a triangle and then unfold and do the same thing the other way. So you're going to end up with 4 folds through your piece of paper from each corner and through the sides. So you end up with something like this. And I will give us a moment there for folks to do those first folds. Okay, once you've done that, go back to one of your triangular folds. So fold it in half diagonally so you have a triangle. And then fold it one more time in half so that you have a smaller triangle. And from the top, if you hold it up, what you'll see are sort of these 2 triangular pockets. That's where you want to end up. I'm just going to pause and look through folks on camera to see if we have any panicked faces or any questions. Okay. So the next step, I will say this is one of the trickier steps to explain. So I might go through this a couple of times and try to show it in a couple different ways. So as we said, if you look at this from above, you've got these 2 little pockets. If you kind of insert your finger into one of those pockets, you see it kind of pops out. And you want to kind of push on the fold on one side of the pocket. So started with my sort of flat pockets, insert my finger and push out. And what you can do is if you bring these other sides of the pocket together, you create a square. You kind of went from a triangular pocket to a square pocket. And I'm going to just go back and do that a couple times because I feel like this is one of the most confusing moments. So, and I'll just kind of start totally over from the beginning. So looking from the top at your triangle, you have these two pockets. You're going to insert your finger into one of those. It kind of opens up the pocket and push on the other side. And you make a square. All right, I'm going to pause here. And if anyone is totally lost, please feel free to throw a question in the chat or raise a hand. And I can do my best to explain in another way because this is a little bit of a weird one. For the moment, I'm not seeing any. Okay. We'll see, we'll keep going. And as always, feel free to stop me. So you've made your square on one side. You're just going to flip your paper over. And you're going to do the same thing with that other triangular pocket. So insert a finger and push out here. Sorry, this gets a little tough to see. And when you fold it in, you make a square. So at the end of this process, when you've done it on both sides, what you'll have is a square like this. And from the top, you'll see it sort of open. You kind of have these new square pockets. And on the bottom, it's all closed up. And just because this is, I know I'm spending a lot of time on this, but I feel like it is one of the trickier spots where people get lost. So I'm just going to show that last fold one more time. So we made our square on the first side. Yep, Michael, I feel you. So if you have your square on one side, flip it over. Another way to think of this is that this outer corner of your triangle on the other side is going to end up over here. That's where it's trying to go. Oh no, I misled you. Sorry. This corner is going to end up here at the top. Up here at the top of your square. So when you open up that pocket and start pushing it in, it'll come up to the top. So your edge point of your second triangle ends up at the top here. If anyone else is lost, I'm just going to pause here for a little while and I can see if that still did not make sense. I can also go back and try and, but again, apologies for the limitations of doing this over Zoom. If we were in person, I'd be like right there with you folding. Okay, Cora also lost. Let me.
Lily, do you maybe want to try it one more time? And then if this is why we have the troubleshooting room that no one's in right now. So we can also move some folks over because I'm not entirely sure I did it right. And, I'm here to be helping order.
Okay, Michael, congratulations for getting there. I'm going to show it one more time from this stage. So I folded my square piece of paper in half to be a triangle. I folded it in half again to get a smaller triangle. And I have these two pockets here. Open up one of the pockets. And this is actually another way you can think of it. So as I open up the pocket, I have these two points here, and I'm going to bring them together. So that is one way to think about it. And then flip it over. You're going to do the same thing. Open up the pocket. And then these two far points of the pocket are going to come together. And then when you've done that, you end up with a square from the top. On one side, you have sort of these open flaps. And then on the bottom, it's closed up. Okay, So yeah, I think for the sake of time, if you're lost at this point, first of all, I feel your pain. Second, feel free to take yourself, or maybe Maddie and Hunter can help direct you to the troubleshooting room. But for those who are here, we're going to go on to the next spot. So you're going to have your open side facing away from you to start. And you'll see that there are these two sort of like flaps on each side. And what you want to do is fold it so that this edge, so starting from like the top of your square down here, is going to be folded so that it comes in line with the center of the square. So you end up, and I'll bring this closer. Here's your square, you fold it so that this edge comes to meet the center of the square. And just make sure that you're folding, the point of your fold is at the open side. And then once you've done that, you're going to do it on the other side as well. Oh, I overfolded mine a little bit. Go. Fold the other side to come meet it. So again, you've folded one side in. This side of your square is going to fold in so that it meets the center point of your square. And then once you've done that, you flip your square over and you do the same thing on the other side. So this side, if my open, remember open side is pointing away from me. This side of the square is going to come be folded in to meet the center. And I'll show you what it looks like when you're done, so you can kind of see if you got there. So when I'm done, I have sort of a kite shape. And the kite has these sort of flaps. And then at the bottom, this little triangle. And we'll pause there for a minute. And maybe I will also just refold that really quickly so you can see again. So I have my square, my open end facing away from me. I'm going to take this edge of the top sort of flap of this square and fold it in so that it meets the center. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Fold it in and then flip over my square and do the same thing. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is just create a crease. So this bottom part of your kite, you're just going to crease along this sort of bottom of these other folds both ways, and that'll just help you with the next step. Just make a little crease and then unfold it. So I just crease this both ways. Okay. So then if you think of this, like these are little like doors or windows, you're going to open up the doors and then there's sort of like a flap that you can peel back. So again, we have our kite. I'm going to open up the little windows and peel back the top layer. And it'll kind of settle into that crease you just made. And then if I'm holding it, this piece that I peeled back, if I kind of push it down, you'll see that the edges kind of want to come in. And we're going to fold along those lines. So I kind of run a finger along the side to make this fold a little easier, but then end up with a diamond shape. I'm going to take this back and show it again. But this is what you'll end up with. So have my little kite, open up the windows, peel down the top flap. And as I pull it down, these sides come in And I fold along these lines, get a diamond. And then flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Open up windows, peel down the flap. If I pull it down, these sides kind of come in. And I'm going to crease them to come down. So what I end up with here is a diamond. One side has these flaps that are sort of mobile and one side is closed. And then if I open it up at the bottom, there's a triangle here. So that's what you're hoping to get to. Okay, reminder that if you've gotten lost, check out the troubleshooting room. They might be able to help you get back on track. So then I'm going to have the open side of my diamond, again, facing away from me. And sort of similar to what we did before, this edge of the diamond, you're going to fold in so that it meets this center crease. So I'll show you here, because there are sort of two layers here. So you fold that in to meet the center crease. And I'll hold it up so you can see it. You also will see a couple diagonals. Diagonal here and a diagonal here, and that's how you kind of know you've come to the right place. And I'll show that again. So if you have your diamond with your open parts up, you want to bring this edge to fold and meet the inner or the center crease there. So I fold that in, and it's coming to a point up at the top here. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. So from my diamond, I folded these pieces in. And then once you've done that, you're going to flip it and do the same thing on the other side. This is sort of the theme of folding paper cranes. I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. Oh, see, I'm getting a little messy, but that's fine. So now I have this like sort of thinner diamond. You can see I have, you can see these like creases coming down here. And again, I have sort of these open free parts up top. I'm going to pause there. And maybe just to be safe, I'll quickly show that one more time. So, and feel free again to jump in the chat if you need to head to the troubleshooting room. So you've got your diamond with your open sides up here. You're going to fold each side so that this edge comes to meet the center fold or the center of your diamond. And then same thing on the other side, this edge comes to meet this center fold. And then we flip and we do the same thing on the other side. Fold it in, fold it in. Okay. So now, just to illustrate this, you don't have to do this, but I found it easier to explain. Just going to draw on my crane here for a moment. So imagine that you have two dots on either side of your little skinny diamond. Now, you'll see that like you have kind of two sections. You want these dots to meet each other in the middle. So you're going to fold it in on itself so that your dots meet. And then you do the same on the other side. So as if I had two dots here, I'm going to bring these together so that those dots can meet. When I was learning this as a kid, I always thought this looked like a little fox, what you end up with next. You have sort of the ears of the fox up here and its head and the fox's little snout. And I will be using that metaphor for us through the rest of the folding. But let me go back a step and just show again. So we have our sort of free sections up there. And if you imagine two little dots on either side of your center fold, you want to fold those flaps in so that they meet each other. And then do the same on the other side. Okay, and then we are very close at this point. You're gonna take one side of the fox's snout and fold it up to meet the top of the fox's ears. And then flip and do the same thing at the other side of the fox's snout to meet the top of the ears. And then you'll notice there's a little center line here on either side. Kind of doing what we just did before, we're going to fold it in on itself along that center line. I'm just going to take us a step back here once more. We have our little fox, our little ears, fox snout. We're going to fold up one side of the fox's snout to come meet the ears. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And then we're going to fold it in on itself along this center crease again. Okay, and then this is pretty much our last step. If you hold what is now the crane at the sort of base here, you can fold these down and these are going to become your wings. So there's one wing, and then I'll flip it over and fold this down as well. Kind of as far as it will allow. And then if you take these back out, you'll see these are wings. Once you've folded your wings down, again, if you sort of hold at the base, you can move these sort of long skinny pieces out, and one of these will become the crane's neck and head, and one will become the tail. So move them out so they're sort of at an angle. End up with my wings. And then I always choose the messiest side to become the head. So I don't know, it doesn't really matter. And you can just fold it down like that. And you've got a little crane head. You can also just kind of fold it. Oh, I couldn't see that. You can just fold it to the side. It'll become a little head. And then for the last part, if you flip your crane upside down, you'll see there's a little tiny hole right in the middle there. And I don't know if that's kind of blurry, but you can kind of pull the wings out and you can see that little hole. And now I'm switching to my face, I don't know if you can see, but if you hold your crane like this and blow into that little hole and pull the wings out just a little bit, it'll puff up and form a little body. And then you have your crane. Amazing. Oh, Elizabeth looks gorgeous. And I see Paula, yes, I see it. If other folks got lost along the way, I apologize. It is very confusing. Sometimes it's easier to watch a video, or there are also like diagrams you can look at online. I find that the hardest to do. But that is, oh, Charlotte, I see a beautiful crane there. Nice. Awesome. If folks are stuck at a particular point, I think we've got a couple minutes. So if you want to try and hold up where you're stuck, I can try to guide you as well. Alvera, is that the beginning, the like turning the triangle into a square part? It looks like you have it. Oh, you've got some instructions too. Oh, and Alvera, you're muted. Let me see if I can get you to unmute. Let's see if we can troubleshoot.
Okay. I don't know.
Oh, wait, I lost you. Let's see. Where's your video now? Hold on. Let me go back to seeing everyone. And I'll pin you and see if I can see what we've got here.
I'm wearing a pink.
Ah, yes, I've got you. Oh, okay. You look like you have kind of what you need. Yeah. So go back to where you had it sort of all accordion together. Yes. And then if you, and then if you bring, sort of flatten it now, if that makes sense. Flatten the side so that the sides come together. Yes. Oh, but you want one of those sides you pulled over to go to the other, other side.
Like this.
Let's see. Yes, I think you might have it there. Go back to your accordion thing that you were showing me before, if you can. Oh, yes. Yes, yes. There you go. That's it. That's what you want. So that is that first step of turning your triangle into the square. So if you do have your book now, hopefully you should be able to go from there. It's sort of a weird thing to explain virtually. I feel your struggle, but now if you go back to, kind of wish I had like, you know, in cooking shows where they have everything already at different stages. I wish I had a bunch of cranes at different stages to show you. But I could try to get there in a moment and show you what comes next. I think probably as we're going, people will be coming back into the main room because we're going to take a photo with our cranes. CC, so glad to hear you have a little plump crane. And I guess Hunter and Maddie, I'll just follow your lead of where we go from here. Oh, John, very nice. I can't remember if I already saw yours before. Pauline, that looks beautiful. Very excited to see some of these cranes. Oops.
All right, I came to check on the main room. How's it going in here, Lily?
Good. We've got a number of cranes. We do have some stuck at various points. I'm just going back to one of those points to see, but we have quite a few. If folks who have them want to hold them up really quickly for Maddie to see.
Amazing.
Here. Yeah. That's awesome. So Alvera, if you want, I'm back at this point with the square, the sort of
I
accordion.
wonder, actually,
Oh
Lily,
yeah.
the troubleshooting room is having a little bit of trouble, as you can maybe imagine. I wonder if we could put you, Lily, your crane cam, and those folks here that need troubleshooting all into that room with Aaron and Jen. Would that be possible?
Sure, yeah. Do we have time or do you want to make sure we get a little information out? Because I can stay later and keep troubleshooting with people.
Oh yeah, it's almost time. That's true. Actually, you're right. Why don't we bring everybody back now and you can
Okay.
we can stay a little longer. Sorry folks, we got so into the cranes, I lost track of time. So yeah, actually, Hunter, can you bring everybody back to this room? And I'm so glad that people did make cranes.
people should be on their way back.
Awesome.
Okay. I'm gonna go back to.
Perfect. Thank you all
Mhm.
so much. Are folks back from, I think so. Welcome and welcome folks who were in the troubleshooting room and all who were able to make cranes and who were not able to make cranes. We can stay a little longer for folks who are really committed and want to get it to work, but we also have other resources like the video, and they also have an image where you can get help elsewhere. But I want to make sure that we don't run out of time to actually share the cranes, because that's really what this is about, in addition to the act of making it, which I find really enjoyable and using my hands, the tactile art form. We want to share the message of the cranes. So is everybody back? Yes. Okay. Hello. Welcome back, troubleshooters. Sorry, for the sake of time, we wanted to come all back together and do a closing. But if you want to stay, the Crane Cam and Lily, I think, can stay a little longer. And we can, if you want that sense of completion to actually finish it, we have some time. But for the sake of time, we want to take a group photo. So if you have a paper crane that you made, please put it up on the screen. And if you don't want to be on the screen, you can turn your camera off. And I am gonna take a screenshot. Let's see here. Oh, this is beautiful, beautiful. All right, so I'll take
I didn't make this, but
Oh, that's super cool though. I love it. Yes, you can hold something you didn't make. Okay. I'm gonna count to 3 and take a picture. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Okay. Thank you all for making a crane. Cool. So now is the time to share them. So for folks who are on social media, there is an international campaign called #CranesForOurFuture, organized by our partners over at the Nuclear Threat Initiative. And it is an international campaign on social media using that hashtag that you can be a part of. So Hunter, if I see you're busy with your cat, but if you can put in the chat, if your cat will allow you to, the some caption ideas, and then we can also post the link to the NTI toolkit. And what's cool about this toolkit is it also has images you can download. If you remember, the slides that we showed at the beginning had some beautiful artwork with paper cranes. Those are images that you can share on social media if you don't have a picture of a crane to share. However, if you would like to take a selfie and post it on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, really anywhere, that is a great way to share the message. You can also just send the photo to people in your phone, text them or email them, or even, call them on the phone, really whatever. You could technically send them in the mail, I guess. You'd probably have to flatten them. But really the idea is to spread the message of the crane with the idea that we need a world free from nuclear weapons. Yeah, so Hunter, do you have the toolkit link handy? Oh, and yes, that's the other thing. Thank you. If you have a photo that, say maybe you're not on any of those social media sites, but you would love for your picture to get out there, you can share a photo with us via email, and we will post it to the UCS account along with the screenshot we just took. Awesome. Perfect. Thank you. So that is the website for cranesforourfuture.org. And you can also learn more about the cool stuff they have going over there. Like I said, they've been doing this campaign for a few years now, and we wanted to be a part of it through this event. Any questions, concerns, UCS folks? Anything I'm forgetting to share?
Yeah, just reiterating, if you ran into some trouble, I'm happy to stay on for a little longer and see if we can get folks to crane. But also don't beat yourself up. I feel like people have also like very different learning styles. Sometimes watching someone do it is helpful. If not, if you couldn't get it on this event, check out the videos or the like diagrams of how to fold it. That might work for you. It's just a bit of a tricky thing to teach virtually, but I'm happy to stay for a little while.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you all so much. This was really powerful, and I think for me, a really important way to mark this momentous occasion, also have a little fun, do something, with my hands, and be a part of a community with you all. And I'm so glad to see all of the cranes, and folks in the troubleshooting room. We did our best. This is all that my crane actually looked like. So I made this one last year, so don't beat yourself up. We didn't get that far. But if folks want to stay on to finish them, I think we'll transition to that. And if your time with us feels like it has come to a close, feel free to log off. And thank you so much. And don't be a stranger. Feel free to reach out with any questions. Thank you all so much.